I'm a very big fan of Winnie the Pooh. Some of you have commented on my Eeyore who lives back there. He's actually sitting on a Winnie the Pooh tapestry blanket. There's a big Eeyore over here, there's a little Eeyore up there. One of the iconic pictures from my childhood is me and my brother dressed up as Tigger and Pooh for Halloween. It's very cute. My parents wanted me to include it. So we are a Winnie the Pooh household, right? And so I've always wanted to make a video diving into the very long history of Winnie the Pooh. And now felt like a very good time because it feels very seasonally appropriate. Winnie the Pooh always feels like an autumnal series to me. I think because the setting of the 100-Acre Wood is very fall coded, no matter what season the story happens to take place in. All the different colored leaves and whatnot. Which, as I'm recording this, it is fall, but I live in LA and it's still very hot here. It was like 100 degrees yesterday. But I'm gonna manifest fall through the power of Winnie the Pooh. It's gonna be 70 degrees and cloudy if I have anything to say about it. And I'm also manifesting fall through the power of today's sponsor, Wild Grain. Wild Grain is the world's first bake from frozen subscription box for sourdough breads, artisanal pastries, and fresh pasta. These people are sending you bread and pasta in the mail. That's the best thing you could possibly receive in the mail. All I can think of is that Oprah Winfrey meme of like, I love bread. So the way it works is Wild Grain partners with small bakers across the country to bring you artisanal foods. They come frozen to your door, and then it's super easy. Everything bakes in 25 minutes or less, and you bake everything from frozen, so you don't thaw it, you don't have to like put it in the refrigerator overnight, and so you can just impulsively decide that you want some fresh baked bread, and it'll be ready with no mess or cleanup in less than half an hour. You get to customize what you receive in your box. They have plant-based options and gluten-free options and some seasonal and limited edition items. So right now, they have tons of great fall-themed items. I tried the butternut squash and cheese ravioli. It was absolutely delicious. I just put butter and arrabbiata seasoning on it, which I put on most things I cook. There were pumpkin cinnamon biscuits with glaze on them. These were very yummy and also made the house smell great. Giant chocolate chunk cookies, which you don't know this about me, but I'm a big chocolate chip cookie girl. I love a chocolate chip cookie. When a place has a chocolate chip cookie, I must try it. And these were very good. And they weren't kidding about them being giant. I had to nudge them all apart with a spatula in the middle of baking them because I was like, ooh, they are spreading out and touching each other. I didn't put them far enough apart. I also really like the sourdough harvest bread, just with some butter on it. It's bread with like little bits of like nuts and seeds and raisins or whatever in it. I don't know, very like rustic. But eating pumpkin cinnamon biscuits and watching direct-to-video Winnie the Pooh movies, it definitely felt like fall if I just ignored everything happening outside. So if you want to check out Wild Grain, use my link in the description and my code SarahSarif to get $30 off your first box. Plus, you'll get free croissants for life. What other company is making that offer? And maybe you should join now so that you can try their fall products. Now let's get into Winnie the Pooh. Winnie the Pooh was created in the 1920s, depends on what you consider his first official introduction, and he was written and created by A.A. Milne and illustrated by E.H. Shepard. A.A. Milne was a writer who was born in 1882. He wrote novels, plays, essays, verse. He contributed a lot to the British humor magazine Punch. They're British, did I say that? So A.A. Milne was a fairly successful British writer, and in 1920 he had a son named Christopher Robin Milne, who was obviously the inspiration for Christopher Robin. The real person Christopher Robin seems to have had sort of a mixed experience with his connection to the Winnie the Pooh franchise. I don't really want to get into that in this video, but that's just something to keep in mind. So Christopher Robin Milne had a teddy bear that his dad had gotten him from the luxury department store Harrods, and Christopher Robin named that bear Edward. Then later, he gave the bear a new name, Winnie the Pooh. The name Winnie was inspired by Winnipeg, a black bear at the London Zoo, which Christopher Robin was a huge fan of this bear. And uh-oh, it's time to go on a Winnipeg tangent. So the story of Winnipeg, the real-life black bear, starts in Canada. This was in like the 1910s. There was a man named Harry Colborne who who was a veterinarian with the Canadian Cavalry. Cavalry as in, like, the guys who would fight mounted on horseback. And he was a veterinarian as in, like, he helped take care of the horses. Because we're in, like, World War I territory. Spoilers. It is funny, the rapid advancement in military technology, because pre-World War I, a war was like old-timey musket guns, horses, maybe some sort of decorative sword that you would have if you were a high-ranking officer. And war was seen as sort of like honorable, very like boots on the ground. A lot of old people at this time had sort of fond memories of like, I fought in this war and then I came back and like that was a thing that I did. But at this point, everybody was trying to develop new military technology. So like machine guns and tanks and chemical weapons. And they were like, ugh, if only we had a war going on so we could try all this new stuff we invented. And then Archduke Franz Ferdinand got assassinated. And all of the countries in Europe were like, well, here's our excuse to have a fun war. But then they started doing the war, and they were like, oh, this sucks, actually. There's a lot of trench warfare, which was terrible. People getting trench foot. Way more loss of life than people had been expecting. And afterwards, everyone was like, well, that was the World War. That's the war to end all wars. No more war after this. Which was incorrect, unfortunately. So at this point, we're going into World War I, and people still think horses are a good idea. And I think during World War I, everyone realized, oh no, a mounted cavalry situation is not going to be happening. I guess we'll use these horses to, like, transport supplies and whatnot. But I guess there was a tremendous amount of horse death during World War I. Like, horses getting hit by machine gun fire and stuff, dying of starvation and disease. I don't know. Bad time all around. But at this point, Henry Colborne, who's a veterinarian for the Canadian Cavalry, is going to go join World War I in England because Canada is allied with England. And he's going to go there and help take care of horses or whatever. Also part of this is that he was born in England. He was an Englishman who moved to Canada when he was 18. So maybe there was some national loyalty of like, I should go help out my homeland. Of course, he would have said it in a British accent, which I am not going to do for you. So in Canada, he had been living in Winnipeg, and he leaves Winnipeg to go to Quebec, which is where the Canadian military was going to meet up and leave to go to England. Not all the military, I don't think, but like this group. And on the way to Quebec, he comes across a hunter who was selling a bear cub. So the hunter, I guess, had killed the bear's mother and now had this baby bear and was trying to sell it. I don't know enough about bears to know, like, could he have just released the bear back into the wild? Was that not feasible? I think maybe at this point the bear had been socialized with humans a little bit. Maybe he just wanted money. Basically everything that was going on with this hunter has been lost to time. We don't know what was going on there. And then Harry was like, yes, I would love to buy a bear cub on my way to go to Quebec, to go to England, to fight in a war. I will give you $20 Canadian, which in today's money is $534 in exchange for this baby bear, which I'm then going to lug with me to Quebec. I don't know why he did this. And then he took the bear with him to England, which then I had to Google a very normal sentence. Can bears get seasick? To which the answer is, apparently most animals can. So this poor baby bear is on a boat to England after its mother was just killed, but the bear makes it to England okay, and Harry names the bear Winnipeg after where he had been living in Canada. And then this bear became like the mascot of the Canadian forces in England. Everyone was like, yeah, that's our friend Winnipeg the bear. There's like pictures of Canadian soldiers in England with this bear, which then Harry has to leave to go to France to like participate in the war. And so he leaves Winnipeg the bear with the London Zoo in 1914. I think this was originally meant to be like a temporary arrangement, and then at a certain point he was like, you guys can just have this bear, which does seem better than like the Canadian military having the bear. And the bear, I guess, lived a good life. in the London Zoo. She died in 1934, so she spent 20 years in the zoo, and I don't know how old she was before that. How long do black bears live? Well, according to bear.org, black bears can live 21 to 39 and a half years or more if they are not killed. Okay, so seemingly a pretty average lifespan for this bear. I guess this was a pretty good outcome for if your mama bear has been killed by a hunter. Meanwhile, Harry survived World War I and returned to Canada and started a veterinary practice. I guess there's a 2004 movie about Winnipeg the bear that you can watch, starring Michael Fassbender. I didn't personally watch it, so you should watch it and then tell me if it's good, and then maybe I'll watch it. I had too much actual Winnie the Pooh stuff to bother with Winnipeg the black bear. Anyway, so apparently Christopher Robin went to the London Zoo a lot, was a big fan of this bear. So he was like, I'm gonna rename my teddy bear to be named Winnie after this bear. And then Pooh was the name of a swan that Christopher Robin knew. That didn't really have an interesting story attached to it, so that's all I got for you on Pooh the swan. So Christopher Robin, teddy bear, originally Edward, but then Winnie the Pooh. And then the 100-acre wood was inspired by the 500-acre wood in Ashdown Forest near Milne's country house. So that's what inspired the various elements of Winnie the Pooh. A.A. Milne, I guess, thought, hey, this is all pretty cute. I could probably make some sort of children's thing out of this. Which, to be clear, he was not a children's writer up to this point. He was writing, like, plays and novels for grown-ups. But I feel like it's not uncommon. I feel like this has come up before in videos I've made, where a creative person has kids and then they are inspired by their kids to like make something creative. So the first thing A.A. Milne did is he wrote a poem called Teddy Bear. This was before Christopher Robin renamed his bear to be Winnie the Pooh. So in the poem, the bear is referred to as Edward Bear, the original name of the teddy bear. This poem was published in the February 13th, 1924 edition of Punch magazine. And then later that year, it was republished in a book of children's verse called When We Were Very Young. When We Were Very Young was written by A.A. Milne and illustrated by E.H. Shepard. Shepard was an illustrator who worked on Punch, and for his illustrations, he modeled the teddy bear after his own son's teddy bear. That teddy bear was named Growler, and apparently that teddy bear was later passed down through the family and destroyed by a neighbor's dog. We don't have that teddy bear anymore. Then in 1925, we get a Christmas story from A.A. Milne in which Winnie the Pooh is referred to by name. This story was commissioned and published by the London newspaper Evening News and illustrated by J.H. Dowd. He seems to have been a one-off in this whole shebang. The next year, in 1926, A.A. Milne and E.H. Shepard released a collection of stories titled Winnie the Pooh. I have this copy that I got recently at a thrift store. It is a reprint that is made to look like the first American edition of Winnie the Pooh. It has a map of the 100-acre wood in it, and various stories about Winnie the Pooh and his friends. These characters were mostly inspired by other Christopher Robin toys: Piglet, Eeyore, Kanga, and Roo, and then A.A. Milne invented the characters of Owl and Rabbit whole cloth, not inspired by any stuffed toy. These original toys are now at the main branch of the New York City Public Library, with the exception of Roo, who had been lost. In 1927, A.A. Milne does another book of poems for children, which is called Now We Are Six, and some of the poems in that collection are poems about Winnie the Pooh. I received Now We Are Six as a gift when I was 6, so like probably my birthday, maybe for Christmas, I don't remember. And I remember getting it and being like, oh, it's poems. Boo. I think I still have it somewhere, but I couldn't find it. Finally, in 1928, we get another collection of stories about Pooh called The House at Pooh Corner. And that's the original Pooh canon, just those 4 books. It seems like both A.A. Milne and E.H. Shepard were both kind of over it. I think they both didn't like that they were only known for Pooh and it was overshadowing their other work. Which, I don't know, I get it, but that is a very privileged problem to have. Like, oh no, I invented Winnie the Pooh and now that's all people care about. Like, yeah, man. I don't know what to tell you. Next time, don't create an enduring classic, I guess. But the public wanted more Winnie the Pooh, and a businessman named Stephen Slesinger saw an opportunity. In 1930, he purchased the US and Canadian merchandising, television, and recording rights to Winnie the Pooh. This cost him a $1,000 advance and 66% of the income, which just a year later, Winnie the Pooh was a $50 million a year business. So that deal was worth it. There was tons of Winnie the Pooh merchandise, and this is when we get Winnie the Pooh in his iconic red shirt. So the 4 original Winnie the Pooh books were in black and white, so we didn't know what Winnie the Pooh looked like in color. But a lot of this merchandise was in color, so they had to decide what Winnie the Pooh was going to look like in color. And for the cover of a record, an RCA Victor picture record, Pooh was depicted as yellow with a red shirt on. This record has been uploaded online. I listened to it. It's not very good, at least by my modern standards. But it did establish what Winnie the Pooh looked like. The Parker brothers released A.A. Milne's Winnie the Pooh board game in 1933, again with the red shirt. In the 1940s, Agnes Brush created the first plush dolls with the red shirts on. So I guess everyone just unanimously decided, yes, that's what Pooh should look like. And then Wikipedia, my best friend, I give her money every year. In both the articles for Winnie the Pooh and Stephen Slesinger, they mention a Winnie the Pooh radio broadcast on NBC, animation, and a motion picture, a TV cartoon. I have found no evidence of any of this existing. The Wikipedia articles also have no sources for these specific claims. I tried to research it, and I found a Reddit post where someone had copy and pasted all these claims and was like, does anyone have any leads on what the hell this is talking about? And then someone else responded like, no. So maybe this is lost media, or maybe it never existed in the first place and is just an erroneous claim on these Wikipedia articles. If you have more leads than I do, please let me know. Then, in 1953, Stephen Slesinger, I feel like I'm saying it different every time. Slesinger. Whatever. However you say it, he passed away. His wife, Shirley, continued developing the character. I believe she designed merchandise for like high-end department stores that was Winnie the Pooh. And then, in 1956, A.A. Milne passed away. So at this point, we have 2 widows with Winnie the Pooh rights. And in 1961, Walt Disney comes a-knockin'. He's like, hello, ladies. I would like to pay you money for your little yellow bear. I don't know if that's how the conversation went. But Walt Disney, I guess, was a very big fan of Winnie the Pooh. His kids liked it, which this very much reminds me of the story of Mary Poppins. His kids liked it. He liked it. He wanted to get the rights for it. It's basically the whole plot of the movie Saving Mr. Banks. But with Winnie the Pooh, it was pretty straightforward. I think both of the widows were like, you're gonna give me money? Fantastic. Also, fun fact, the art for the Mary Poppins books was done by Mary Shepard, E.H. Shepard's daughter. So in 1961, Disney licenses Winnie the Pooh and starts cranking out a lot of Winnie the Pooh stuff. Starting with the short film Winnie the Pooh and the Honey Tree from 1966. This was actually the last short film ever produced by Walt Disney because he passed away later that year. This short film played before the movie The Ugly Dachshund. The plot of The Ugly Dachshund is that there is a couple who has a dachshund. The dachshund is pregnant and going to have a baby, so they're speeding to the vet. They get pulled over by the cops. The guy's like, she's having a baby. And of course the cop thinks that we are talking about the human woman. He's very incensed when he finds out that we were talking about a dog. He writes them a ticket at the veterinarian office, like, don't speed for your dog's birth. The dog has a litter of puppies, but also at the vet, there is a Great Dane puppy. And the Great Dane has been, like, rejected by its mother, or, like, the mother is, like, can't take it, whatever. So the vet is like, hey, you guys have a dog who just had babies and so has milk. So would you like to take this Great Dane puppy also? And they're like, I guess. So this Great Dane is raised with these dachshunds and sort of acts like a dachshund. It's like those dogs who've been raised with cats. And somehow the Great Dane ends up going to like a dog show and meeting other Great Danes. It's basically a play on the Ugly Duckling. The original Ugly Duckling is that a baby swan ends up being raised with a bunch of ducklings, and everyone's like, that swan's kind of weird. And then it grows up and it's like, oh, because that's a different bird. Anyway, I figured you'd want to know the plot of The Ugly Dachshund. But before you got to see The Ugly Dachshund, you had to watch this 25-minute short of Winnie the Pooh trying to get honey. The short starts as live action in Christopher Robin's room, and then we open a storybook and sort of go inside of the storybook. This is probably one of my favorite elements of Winnie the Pooh. I always like it when they include it. A meta storybook element where we get a narrator who interacts with the characters, and the characters interacting with the elements of the storybook. So interacting with the type and moving around across illustrations. I think that's just a very clever and charming framing device. Whenever a Winnie the Pooh thing doesn't use it, I'm always disappointed. This short introduces the Winnie the Pooh theme song. Winnie the Pooh, tubby little cubby all stuffed with fluff. He's Winnie the Pooh, willy-nilly silly old bear. This song is by the Sherman Brothers, who you probably know for doing the music for Mary Poppins. They did music for other things that I'm less familiar with, so I'm always like, the Mary Poppins guys. The plot of this short is that Winnie the Pooh tries to get honey out of a tree, and he also gets stuck in the entrance to Rabbit's house. Kind of a running theme with all of Winnie the Pooh media is that if you're trying to adapt something from A.A. Milne, those were just poems and short stories. So it's often multiple sort of disjointed stories all stitched together to make a long enough runtime, as opposed to one continuous long narrative, especially when we get into the feature-length films. Then in 1968, we get Winnie the Pooh and the Blustery Day. This short was released with the movie The Horse in the Gray Flannel Suit. What's the plot of The Horse in the Gray Flannel Suit? I'm so glad you asked. This movie stars an ad exec, and he has two problems. Problem number one, he has to come up with a pitch in the next 24 hours to advertise an indigestion medicine called Aspercel. Problem number two, he has this daughter who loves horses. Unfortunately, they can't afford to buy a horse, and also, he is allergic to horses. Which I feel like is less of a problem than, like, if you're allergic to cats. Like, a cat is going to be in your home. A horse is not going to be in your home. You don't ever have to interact with that horse in person if you don't want to. Just have your daughter do it at the barn or whatever. I just like that it's framed as a barrier to them having a horse. But this ad exec decides to kill two birds with one stone. He is going to get a horse for his daughter and name the horse Aspercel, the name of the medication. And then he's going to have his daughter compete riding the horse, and she's going to do a great job, and so the horse is going to become famous. And then everyone is going to associate the name Aspercel with a champion racehorse, which will help them sell stomach medicine, I guess. But this plan is too much pressure for the daughter. So during one of the competitions, she falters. And I guess she's like, I can't do this plan. But luckily, her pretty riding instructor, Susie, is like, well, I can help. And so she competes with the horse. They win, and then the riding instructor and the ad exec fall in love. But before you could watch that movie, you had to watch 25 minutes of Winnie the Pooh. In this Winnie the Pooh short, Piglet is flying away in the wind because it's a super windy day. We also meet Tigger for the first time. We get that fun Tigger song. Wonderful thing about Tiggers, Tiggers are wonderful things. Their tops are made out of rubber. There's something made out of springs. Their tails are made out of springs. Bounce, 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 fun, 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 fun. And the wonderful thing about Tiggers is I'm the only one. I'm less solid on the lyrics of that song. We also learn about heffalumps and woozles who steal honey. So Winnie the Pooh then has a nightmare about heffalumps and woozles, and we get the heffalumps and woozles song. Heffalumps and woozles, very confusals. A heffalump of woozles, oh, extraordinary. Better be wary, because they. I'm not good with lyrics, okay? And then after the heffalumps and woozles, then Pooh and his friends have to deal with flooding because there's a thunderstorm. And this short won the Oscar for Best Animated Short. Then we skip a few years, and in 1974, we get the short Winnie the Pooh and Tigger 2. Apparently the name is a reference to Tippecanoe and Tyler 2, which was a campaign song for the 1840 US presidential election. It was a song promoting William Henry Harrison. And I feel like a lot of Winnie the Pooh media has that sort of naming convention. Winnie the Pooh and Tigger too, names that sort of sound like that. And I guess all of them are references to William Henry Harrison's presidential campaign. This short, Winnie the Pooh and Tigger 2, was released with the movie The Island at the Top of the World. Oh, did you want the plot of that movie? Yeah, I could tell you, totally. So, a British aristocrat is going on an expedition. He is looking for his son, Donald, who has been lost in the Arctic. Donald is a whaler, like he was going on a whaling expedition, and he was looking for a rumored island where whales go to die. And I guess that's good because then there's a lot of whales all there, and you can take the whale parts from them that you need. But he's been lost, so this aristocrat is going to go look for him. The team of people he is bringing with him include an archaeologist professor, and a French airship inventor. And this French airship inventor has created a dirigible called the Hyperion, which is how they travel to the Arctic. While in the Arctic, they meet a comically cowardly Inuit man, which I'm sure aged great. And then they come across a lost island called Astrogard with a lost Norse civilization. And they find Donald, that's where Donald has been, and he's with this woman named Freya. And the Wikipedia summary says that they are mutually in love, which is a clarification that I appreciate. Then there's like this xenophobic guy who's in charge of this civilization, and he tries to like kill them. There's also killer whales that get involved. Then at some point, the Norse people decide that they're going to let everybody go, but they want to keep one hostage to prevent the rest of the group from telling the world about their secret civilization. And so the archaeology professor decides that he's going to stay behind with this Norse civilization, and he's going to like study them, I guess. And then everybody else goes home. I'm sure it will shock you to know that all three of these movies that I have talked about did not do very well. But weirdly, this movie they thought was going to do well, so they were going to have a version of the Hyperion dirigible in Disneyland in an area called Discovery Bay. That didn't end up happening. But weirdly, they did make a version of it at Disneyland Paris. There's a Cafe Hyperion that's supposed to be like the airship from this movie. This movie that I think no one cares about. Right? I'm gonna summon the one person in the world who cares about this to the comments. They're gonna be like, actually, it's a really great movie and you should all watch it. Anyway, so this movie lives on in Disneyland Paris. But before you could watch this movie, you had to watch a 25-minute short about Winnie the Pooh. And in this short, Rabbit has gotten very annoyed about Tigger's bouncing, because he keeps like bouncing and like messing things up. And Rabbit decides that he's gonna get Tigger lost in the woods to like break his spirit to make him stop bouncing. It's a very cruel plan. Then instead Rabbit gets lost, and then later Tigger and Roo climb up into a tree, and then Tigger is too scared to climb back down, and Rabbit's like, we'll help you out of that tree if you promise not to bounce anymore. Of course makes Tigger sad. So they rescue him out of the tree, and then he's all sad because he can't bounce. And everyone's like, oh, we miss the old happy Tigger. Don't you, Rabbit? Rabbit's like, fine. Now Tigger is allowed to bounce again. Also around this time, there was a trilogy of Winnie the Pooh short films made in the Soviet Union. One called Winnie the Pooh in 1969, Winnie the Pooh Pays a Visit in 1971, and Winnie the Pooh and a Busy Day in 1972. These are based on stories from the A.A. Milne books, but the aesthetic and the look of the characters is not based on the E.H. Shepard illustrations. In this version, Pooh is very round and brown. Piglet has these little blue shorts on. Rabbit has glasses. The backgrounds all look kind of like scribbled colored pencil. I think it's a very cute look. It's very different from what we're used to, but I think it looks quite charming. It looks very childlike, which I think is the intention. My understanding is that the writing of these is very like funny and sarcastic. I tried to watch it with English subtitles, but I feel like sort of the timing of the jokes gets a little bit lost that way. I think to some extent it is kind of lost in translation, but I still thought it was very cool and wanted to mention it. Back with Disney, in 1977, Disney released a movie called The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, which was really just a collection of the 3 shorts they had released already. There's some additional material that sort of connects them, and an ending scene where Christopher Robin says that he has to go off to school, and he and Pooh are like, we'll always be friends, and we'll always remember each other. The end. Then, in 1981, we get Winnie the Pooh Discovers the Seasons, which is an educational 9-minute short film. I'm mainly mentioning it because this is the beginning of Hal Smith voicing Pooh. Previously, he had been voiced by Sterling Price Holloway Jr., but Hal Smith voices Winnie the Pooh for a chunk of time after this. The plot of this short is that Christopher Robin is explaining the calendar and the seasons to Pooh, but I think it was meant to be shown in, like, classrooms and stuff. It wasn't like, I was gonna say serious, but that doesn't really apply. You know what I mean. It wasn't, like, for entertainment value and wasn't going to be put in front of the ugly dachshund. This was just, like, a little educational thing. Then in 1983, we get another 25-minute short film called Winnie the Pooh and a Day for Eeyore. My Winnie the Pooh bias is Eeyore. I feel like we should be stealing the term bias from the K-pop people. I think it's a good word. I don't know, that I like that he's so glum and grumpy, but he's still, like, part of the gang. His little stick house and his tail that comes off. I don't know. He's great. Here's my, like, little Eeyore. He's magnetic, so he can, like, clip onto things. Hello. This short played before the 20th anniversary reissue of Sword in the Stone. I am not going to recount the plot of Sword in the Stone to you because I think it's less funny than all those weird movies that no one cares about or remembers. People know about Sword in the Stone. And one day I might want to talk about it in an actual video. So we're not doing it now. But in order to watch that 20th anniversary reissue of Sword in the Stone, you had to watch 20 minutes of Winnie the Pooh. And in this, everybody plays Pooh Sticks, which is a game where you drop a stick over a bridge and then watch to see whose stick goes to the other side of the bridge first. You drop the sticks into a river under a bridge. You're not just, like, dropping it on the ground. Whatever, you know how Pooh Sticks works. It's also Eeyore's birthday, so we get, like, Eeyore birthday celebration stuff. I also love that he's gray. It's like, here's this character, he's gray, and he's sad. I feel like Disney often tries to do versions of Eeyore that are blue, and I'm not about that. I think part of what's so cute and kind of charming is that he is sort of gray and sad looking. Also in 1983, Disney started a Winnie the Pooh TV show. It was called Welcome to Pooh Corner, and it aired on the Disney Channel from 1983 to 1986. So, in 1983, Disney launched the Disney Channel as a premium cable channel, so you had to pay extra for it. And this was one of the shows that launched with the channel. This was a live-action show with actors in mascot suits. And these suits had mechanical elements like moving mouths and blinking. In my Labyrinth video that none of you watched, I talked about the Hoggle animatronic, which was a woman with a head put onto her head, and that head had robotics that were being controlled by a third party. This is kind of like that, but these people were in full suits and just part of the head happened to move. Not like a whole head, like elaborate robotic machinery. Just like little mouth move. I mean, I'm sure that's still very technologically impressive. These suits were created by puppetry studio Alchemy 2 and a man named Ken Forsey. 2 years later, he went on to create Teddy Ruxpin, which I feel like makes sense visually. Some of the characters end up looking better than others. Pooh has too much whites in his eyes. Also, his eyes blink, which I think is bad. Eeyore has 4 legs, like he's walking around on all 4s, which I understand is accurate, but I feel like doesn't translate great. When you meet Eeyore in the Disney parks, he's just walking on 2 legs, because it looks more normal. I mean, I also have to acknowledge that I think mascot suit design has gotten a lot better in the, 40 years since they made this show. Human beings have just gotten increasingly skilled at making mascot suits look cute and not ugly and uncanny. But I would say we didn't 100% nail it with this one. The show was filmed on a blue screen with props, and we also get a human narrator who is seen on screen. He was played by Laurie Main. He introduces the story of the episode and also interacts with the characters. Because this show aired on a premium cable channel, it was commercial free, so it's a full 30 minutes, which means that they fill time in a lot of different ways. There is the main story of the episode, then they also do a song with lyrics on screen, like a sing-along kind of thing, and an arts and crafts segment. This show had 120 episodes, and they were doing reruns through like 1997. But as of right now, it only had limited VHS releases, and it is not on streaming. Can't imagine why. So many episodes are considered lost media. What isn't lost media is the educational specials they did for this show. Some of you know where I'm going with this. First, we have Too Smart for Strangers from 1985. This is a 41-minute educational special about stranger danger, because this was the 80s. This special is a musical, so we have multiple songs about stranger danger. There's also segments with human actors, and Winnie the Pooh and friends are reacting to these segments. So we get like a man telling kids like, hey, get into my van. And the kids are like, no way, Buster. And then they run away. And then Winnie the Pooh is like, great job. Winnie the Pooh also in this special tells kids about bad kinds of touching and how nobody, even adults you know, should be touching you in ways that make you feel unsafe. He uses the words private parts. I mean, it's all extremely important information for kids. I think it was really well written. It's just really weird having these uncanny, kind of ugly Winnie the Pooh suits talking about it. So this special has become kind of infamous because the dichotomy is just kind of a lot. In 1986, they did Pooh's Great School Bus Adventure about school bus safety. 1989, You and Only You about being yourself. And also in 1989, Responsible Persons about taking responsibility for your actions. Those last two specials were after the show had already ended. Then, in 1988, we get a new Winnie the Pooh show, aptly titled The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. This ran from 1988 to 1991 on ABC. So, a few years ago, Disney had been shopping around shows, because at this point they had the Disney Channel, but it was a premium channel, not a ton of people were paying for it, and so it was probably just going to be more lucrative to have normal channels pay to air the TV shows that they were making. So they were going to pitch Wuzzles and Gummy Bears to NBC, CBS, and ABC. NBC and CBS bought Wuzzles and Gummy Bears, and so when Disney went to the pitch meeting with ABC, they were like, whoops, we don't have anything for you. Which apparently ABC took that pretty well, but in the back of Disney's mind, I'm sure they were like, we need to make things right with ABC. So a few years later, they were going to do a Winnie the Pooh animated series. Which, like, duh, come on. And so they immediately took it to ABC, and ABC was like, yes, we love it. Because I guess also at this time, everybody's ratings were down with kids' shows, because Nielsen ratings, which is how viewership and ratings for shows is determined, they had changed how things were calculated, and I guess kids had to, like, press a button to, like, say when they started and stopped watching a TV show, and the kids were really bad at doing that, because, like, they're kids. And so everybody's numbers had dropped for kids' shows, because kids were doing a bad job keeping track of the ratings. And ABC was hoping that this new Winnie the Pooh show would help boost their ratings back up. And the deal with Disney was that Disney Channel would have first run rights for the new Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, and then ABC would get to air it after the Disney Channel. So it did air on Disney Channel, but I feel like most people ended up watching it on ABC. The show was comprised of 22-minute episodes, most of which were split into 2 segments. So they did 50 episodes and 82 segments. The show follows Pooh and his friends getting into adventures in the 100-acre wood, often learning some kind of lesson. And in a lot of the episodes, we see Christopher Robin in his house in modern-day America. He's just an American boy living in the 80s. We see Christopher Robin's mom, and Winnie the Pooh and his friends often help Christopher Robin with some kind of problem. This series does not have a narrator or the storybook framing, which is a bummer for me personally. The show got a new theme song called Pooh Bear, by Steve Nelson and sung by Steve Wood. And Winnie the Pooh also gets a new voice actor. Jim Cummings, who I think crushes it. This show is extremely charming. It's exactly what you would expect a Winnie the Pooh animated show to be, and it was very well regarded. It won a Daytime Emmy, and it had reruns various different places all the way through 2007. Then, in 1990, there was a special called Cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue, which is a 32-minute anti-drug PSA, which uses cartoon characters from a bunch of different animation studios. The plot is that there's this teen who's doing drugs. His little sister is trying to intervene, and he also gets an intervention from a bunch of different cartoon characters, including Bugs Bunny, Garfield, the Smurfs, the Ninja Turtles, and Winnie the Pooh for some reason. There's a fantastic line where the teen boy says, "Tell Pooh Bear to mind his own business." This PSA was financed by McDonald's and was produced by the Television Academy, like the people who do the Emmys. And it starts out with George Bush and his wife sitting on a couch with their dog saying not to do drugs. This is so completely of its time. It doesn't even really have that much to do with Winnie the Pooh. I mean, Winnie the Pooh is in it, and in it more than you think he should be. Really, it's just one of those things where people mention, did you know that there's a Winnie the Pooh anti-drug PSA? And so I would be remiss if I didn't mention it, you know? I'd get comments like, you forgot to mention Cartoon All-Stars. And it's like, first of all, I never forget to do anything. I intentionally leave things out on purpose because I don't want to talk about them. But I did, in fact, want to talk about Cartoon All-Stars. So, there you go. Then in 1991, we get a Christmas special called Winnie the Pooh and Christmas 2. Tippecanoe and Tyler 2. William Henry Harrison. This special aired on ABC and is 26 minutes long, and it was later repackaged into a direct-to-video movie in 2002, so we're going to talk about it when we talk about that movie. The 90s was really the era of TV specials and direct-to-video Winnie the Pooh. But before we get into those, we have to talk about the lawsuit. So, the rights for Winnie the Pooh are kind of complicated. There were multiple rights holders and multiple different agreements, which made the ownership kind of confusing. So on the A.A. Milne side, he left his share of Winnie the Pooh to his family, the Royal Literary Fund, Westminster School, and the Garrick Club. E.H. Shepard also left it to his family. He doesn't really matter in this lawsuit. And Slesinger, who did the licensing from the 30s through the 60s, that share of the rights is controlled by Slesinger's widow, Shirley, and the company Stephen Slesinger Incorporated. So there's all different ownership happening with Winnie the Pooh. And Disney is licensing the character from them. So he's like paying, the company, the Disney company, is paying all of these rights holders to license the character for the use of the character. In 1983, the Milne side and the Slesinger side redid their agreements with Disney because there had been some sort of change in copyright law, so it was advantageous to like redo things. I don't really understand that part, but there was a new agreement in 1983. Again, Shepard isn't really important to any of this, so I'm not mentioning him. So for years, Disney had been paying Shirley Slesinger for merchandising rights, because I think that is mainly what Slesinger had the rights for. But she was suspicious that she was not getting all of the royalties that were owed to her. So in 1991, she sued Disney. Now, in this lawsuit, both sides, Disney and Slesinger, were accused of misconduct. Disney allegedly destroyed over 40 boxes of Winnie the Pooh documents. An LA Times article says that one of the boxes was labeled Winnie the Pooh legal problems, which you're not supposed to destroy evidence when there's ongoing litigation. But then the Slesinger side was accused of hiring a private investigator to steal documents from Disney's trash and then lying about where they got the documents and altering court papers to like try and cover it up, which that's definitely not how you're supposed to obtain evidence. So in 2004, the lawsuit was thrown out. They were like, guys, both of you are out of line. This is ridiculous. Like, we're stopping. Litigation did continue after this. I think it was like they threw out the main part of the lawsuit, but there was like additional, I don't understand. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we're not done. Then in 2001, Disney bought out all 4 entities on the milne side, I think to sort of narrow down the number of people involved in this ownership. But then the granddaughters of A.A. Milne and E.H. Shepard did a lawsuit to try and take back the rights from Slesinger. This was either 1998 or 2002. I was a little bit confused on that. And one of the articles I read framed this as they were doing this to help Disney. Like, Disney asked them, hey, can you get the Slesinger portion of the rights, and then we'll just get it from you, because you're willing to negotiate with us and let us have the rights. Slesinger's being kind of annoying. So if you do sort of this backdoor way of getting the rights back, then we can avoid having to deal with them and just deal with you. Which is interesting. Not everywhere framed it that way, so I don't know how accurate that is. But in any case, it didn't work. Because of that 1983 redone agreement, I guess the A.A. Milne side had no claim to the Slesinger side. They tried to appeal it, still no. Then in 2007, Disney tried to do a lawsuit to stop paying Slesinger royalties. I don't know what their justification was for that. I'm sure they just were like over it. They were like, we're annoyed with you. We don't want to pay you anything. How about that? But that was denied. So they still had to pay Slesinger royalties. But then in 2009, it was ruled that Disney now has the rights. Disney has all the rights. And they still have to pay Slesinger royalties, but we're no longer in a dispute over rights. Towards the tail end of this story is where I kind of lose the thread. But seemingly both sides were happy with this, so I guess it doesn't matter. I'm sure they were both just happy to be done doing litigation. Because at this point, this has been like 20 years, because it started in 1991. I'm sorry if I did a bad job explaining. I didn't fully understand what it was that I was saying. Feel free, if you understand, to explain it in the comments. But you have to do a better job explaining it than all of the other sources on the internet, because I read those and I still couldn't quite get there. Back to Disney. In 1996, they released Boo to You Too, Winnie the Pooh. This was a TV special that aired on CBS. It was 21 minutes long. In it, Piglet is very afraid of Halloween. I mean, he's afraid of everything, but he's also afraid of Halloween. And so his friends are very nice, and they try and help him celebrate Halloween without doing anything scary. They refer to it as a Hallow-wasn't, or Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween. Unfortunately, Piglet gets scared anyway, and he like runs away. His friends go looking for him, and now like everybody's scared because his friends are like in the spooky woods and Piglet's all alone. And then Pooh gets like stuck in a tree, or like part of the costume gets stuck or something, and so his friends are all yelling, and so Piglet thinks that his friends are being attacked by monsters. And so he is brave, and he gets in this like monster robot suit thing, and he stands up for his friends, and his friends thank him for rescuing them. In 1997, we get Pooh's Grand Adventure, The Search for Christopher Robin. This was a direct-to-video movie. Christopher Robin is going off to school, and he has trouble telling Pooh because he's sad about it, and he knows that Pooh will be sad about it, so he's not able to like spit it out. And so instead, the next day, he leaves a pot of honey with a note attached to it, which the note ends up getting honey all over it. And it's also a very poorly spelled note because Christopher Robin has not done very much school yet. And so there is a misunderstanding where Pooh and his friends think that instead of school, he has written skull. An owl says that Christopher Robin must be at the Skull Cave where there are Skullosauruses. And so Pooh and his friends are going to try and rescue Christopher Robin. They get to the Skull Cave and they try and be brave, but in the end, Christopher Robin just shows up and he's like, oh, sorry, I was at school. 1998, we get a Winnie the Pooh Thanksgiving. This is a 22-minute TV special that aired on ABC. It is funny that we're doing a Thanksgiving special, considering most of these characters are British. What holidays do you guys have over there? Boxing Day? Guy Fawkes Day? Unfortunately, Disney is an American company making things for a primarily American audience, so we get Winnie the Pooh celebrating Thanksgiving. Pooh and his friends are going to have a Thanksgiving dinner, and everyone's just going to bring random stuff and just have a fun, nice time. But then Rabbit gets very controlling, and he gives everyone specific tasks to do and specific things he wants them to acquire, like turkey and cranberries. And then, of course, everything gets ruined and everyone's very sad and they're like, no, now we can't have Thanksgiving. And then they realize they should just do the version of Thanksgiving they were going to do in the first place, where they all just bring random stuff, have fun being together as friends. That's the important part of Thanksgiving, is being together. In 1999, we get A Valentine for You. This was a 22-minute TV special that aired on ABC. Valentine's Day is tomorrow, and we overhear Christopher Robin writing a card for a girl named Winifred. We initially think it's for Winnie the Pooh, but no, it's for Winifred. An owl is like, oh, Christopher Robin must have been bitten by a love bug. He's smitten with a girl. And he has a song where he explains what girls are. They're like boys, but different. Which, you guys all know Kanga. I mean, she's the only girl, but you do know her. Girls are like Kanga, but not all of them. Pooh and his friends somehow determine that they need to find a smitten bug to bite Christopher Robin to reverse his infatuation with this girl. And they capture a smitten bug, which is just like a firefly. But then Christopher Robin seems happy, so Winnie the Pooh does not release the smitten bug onto Christopher Robin. And we get the message that you can have room in your heart for old friends and new friends. Also in 1999, we get Seasons of Giving, which is a direct-to-video Christmas movie. This is a disjointed compilation of different things, so it contains a Winnie the Pooh Thanksgiving, notably not a Christmas thing, and 2 episodes of The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, Ground Piglet Day and Find Her, Keep Her. The movie starts out with some very dated-looking 3D animation of Christopher Robin's bedroom. Then we get the plot of the episode Ground Piglet Day, where Rabbit's calendar is wrong. Some of the pages blew away. So everyone thinks that it's Groundhog Day. They make Piglet be a groundhog and try and see his shadow. And they determine based on that spring is over. But then the next day, it snows. And so Rabbit's very upset. Piglet is also upset. And then there's some confusion where they think that Piglet has melted. Unimportant. But then they realize he's okay. And that it's actually November, which then, since it's November, we then get the plot of the Thanksgiving special from earlier. Then we fast forward to Christmas Eve, and Rabbit gets a letter from a bluebird named Kessie. And then we get the plot of the episode Find Her, Keep Her, as like a flashback. And it is the story of how Rabbit ended up raising this bird named Kessie. He ends up being very overprotective of her, even though he didn't initially want to raise a bluebird. But she learns to fly against his wishes, and he realizes that he has to let her go, and so they share this very heartfelt goodbye. And then back in the present time, it's Christmas, and Kessie comes back to visit. This is not a very good movie. I feel like these were 3 strange things to pick to be the segments of this movie. We kind of gave it a through line, but also, like, not really. It's probably bottom of my list in terms of Winnie the Pooh Christmas things you could watch. Also in 1999, we get the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh theme park ride. So apparently, for a long time, Disney had been thinking about doing a theme park ride based around Winnie the Pooh. But they couldn't decide what it was going to be or where they were going to put it, so they kept putting it off. And then they finally decided that they were going to replace Mr. Toad's Wild Ride in Magic Kingdom. They then added that same ride to Disneyland in 2003. They added it to Critter Country, because there was already a Winnie the Pooh greeting area and a Pooh Corner gift shop, and they replaced the Country Bear Jamboree. The Disneyland one is the one that I have been on, so that's what I can confidently talk about. The ride itself is a dark ride based on the 1977 movie. We start out with it being very windy and all the characters blowing around in the wind. There's also a thunderstorm and flooding. Tigger meets Winnie the Pooh, and then Winnie the Pooh has a bad dream about heffalumps and woozles. Then he wakes up and it is his birthday and we celebrate his birthday, and then the ride ends. It's a very short ride. There's a very funny bit from the McElroy brothers about how this ride has Tigger's Abyss, the heffalump nightmare zone. And Griffin McElroy went on this ride with his baby and he was like, what's this terrible, scary part of the ride? I think of that every time I go on this ride, because why is there a weird, scary part of this ride? I wouldn't say that the heffalump and woozle section of the movie is particularly scary. It's more just like an excuse to do whimsical, silly animation. But in the ride, it's definitely framed as like dark and scary in like kind of a silly way, but like if you're a very small child, I don't think you're gonna like it. I don't know. I've been on this ride many more times than the average person. My younger brother is autistic, and now when we go to Disneyland, he wants to go on a lot of different rides. But when we first started going to Disneyland, for years, he just wanted to go on It's a Small World over and over and over again, and Winnie the Pooh over and over and over again, which It's a Small World is like 10 minutes. Winnie the Pooh is like 2 minutes. Like, it's so short. So going on that over and over, you really get the gist. And you spend so much of the ride in the Heffalump Nightmare Zone. That whole section of the park and like the Winnie the Pooh area is very cute. Just, I think the ride is maybe a little bit misguided. But it's in Disney World, Disneyland, and then in 2005 they put a version of it in Hong Kong, and in 2016 in Shanghai. God, I have so much script left. Oh my god, there's so much Winnie the Pooh. Then in the year 2000, we get the Tigger movie, which is a theatrically released feature film. In this movie, it's almost winter, so everybody is getting ready for winter time, but Tigger is bouncing around and accidentally destroying things and messing things up. Everyone, but also mainly Rabbit, are annoyed with him and basically tell him, like, go find someone else to bounce with. And Tigger starts thinking, I wish I had a family of other Tiggers, because then we could all bounce together and we'd all like bouncing. So he sets out to find other Tiggers. He goes out with Roo to find his family, and he teaches Roo some kind of special corkscrew bounce where you like spin around and bounce really high. It has a name. I didn't write it down. Sorry. They are unsuccessful that day at finding Tigger's family. And that night in bed, Roo is telling Kanga, like, I wish I was Tigger's brother, because he seems to really want to have a family. And Kanga gives us the thesis of the movie, which is that we're all still family, you know, whether or not you're a Tigger. Roo and everybody else feels bad for Tigger, so they decide to forge a letter pretending to be Tigger's family. And so now Tigger is under the impression that his family, A, exists, and B, is coming to visit him, which was not in the letter, but he just sort of came up with that on his own. So he plans a party for his family. And so now everybody's in too deep. So they decide to dress up as Tigger and show up at Tigger's house pretending to be his family, which Tigger does figure it out. And he thinks that everyone is making fun of him, which is so sad. Then he goes out on his own to look for his family, but there's a blizzard happening. And so everyone goes out to try and rescue him from freezing to death in this blizzard. They all argue with each other, and this, I guess, like the noise triggers an avalanche, and Tigger gets separated from everybody. But then Roo is able to rescue him, in part utilizing the special corkscrew bounce thing from earlier. So everybody gets reunited, and Tigger realizes that they are his family. And they all have a party. I really liked this movie. I liked the message of found family, because I didn't remember this movie. I must have watched it at some point, but I didn't know if we did meet other Tiggers, which I'm glad that we didn't, because I think that would have been a much weaker movie. Also in the year 2000, we get a different theme park ride called Pooh's Honey Hunt. This is the one Winnie the Pooh ride that is different from all the others, and it is at Tokyo Disneyland. This makes sense because the Tokyo Disney parks are owned and operated by the Oriental Land Company, and they are just licensing the Disney intellectual property. They aren't actually owned or run by Disney. And because of this, it's kind of universally agreed upon that the Tokyo Disney parks are the best parks. Everything is just of a higher caliber, including this Winnie the Pooh ride. This is the fancy version of the ride. So, 1999, they did the ride in Magic Kingdom, and then the people at Tokyo Disney were like, we could do better than that. Seemingly the Disneyland and Disney World versions each cost like $30 million, and the Tokyo version cost $130 million. A big part of that is the invention of this trackless ride system. So instead of cars that are on a little metal track, like a little train car, these are loose cars that are controlled by like a GPS. They still have a programmed, planned path, but they're able to reverse and turn and double back, and you can have multiple cars going at once, all moving around each other in ways that a ride with a track would not be able to achieve. The only time I've ridden a trackless ride is on Star Wars Rise of the Resistance. And I had sort of mixed feelings about it because I feel like part of the gimmick is all this like fun, weird moving around, but that necessitates these like big empty rooms, which I don't like as much. It's one of those innovations where I'm like, yeah, I guess it's cool, but also like, why? This ride is also based on the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh 1977 movie, so it kind of has the same scenes in it, though it does look a lot better. It's made to look like it's happening inside of a storybook. All of the characters have a lot more texture to them. It just looks a lot nicer. I went to Japan in like 2023, and I went to one of the Tokyo Disney parks, but not the one that has Pooh's Honey Hunt. I went to Tokyo Disney Sea, not Tokyo Disneyland. So I did not ride this ride. I will one day. I guess it's like super, super popular though. I mean, I think Winnie the Pooh is generally quite popular in Japan, and I think this very cute trackless ride is also appealing. So I guess this ride gets like really long wait times, which is funny because at Disneyland, the Winnie the Pooh ride is generally one of the shorter wait times. Now, you will notice that I have not been talking about video games in this video, but my mom says I have to mention this one. In 2001, there was a educational CD-ROM game called Winnie the Pooh Kindergarten. The premise is that they are putting a school in the 100-acre woods. So each of the characters has like a little educational mini game that you can do. And I played this game a lot as a kid. I played a lot of the Disney CD-ROM educational games, but this one is particularly charming. I remember Eeyore had a mini game with musical instruments. You could decorate Pooh's thoughtful spot. There was a balloon counting game with Roo, a shape sorting game with Rabbit, a word memory game with Owl, and a game with Tigger where you learn action words. So there you go. That's the Winnie the Pooh kindergarten game. In 2001, there was also a new TV series. This was called The Book of Pooh, and it ran on Playhouse Disney from 2001 to 2003. They were 22-minute episodes that were split into 2 segments, and they made 51 episodes in total. The setup is that this takes place inside of a book, so the theme song to every episode starts out with a faceless Christopher Robin having to leave for school, and he leaves a book behind that is the Book of Pooh. And then we go inside the Book of Pooh. This show is not animated, it is puppetry. And it uses a new version of puppetry called Shadowmation by Mitchell Kriegman. This uses real-time virtual sets, it's sort of like video game technology, I guess, and Japanese bunkaroo-style team puppetry. It's funny seeing behind the scenes of the puppetry because it's a bunch of people in like green screen suits with these puppets. I remember this show vaguely. I didn't remember it was puppets. Mainly what I remembered was that in the intro, there was a flying bluebird flying through a forest of trees. And I started watching this for this video, and I was like, oh, it's the show! The flying bluebird is a character, and it is Kessie, the bluebird that Rabbit raised. This is not my favorite style of puppetry I've ever seen, I will say, because it's like people like controlling the puppets like in front of their bodies, so the movement is different from what I'm used to with puppets. I'm more used to like the like rod puppets, or like where they're holding it above their heads and sort of moving it around that way. I feel like I learned a lot about puppetry when I did my Johnny and the Sprites video, but I still feel like I don't have the language to articulate why I think this puppetry looks a bit odd to me. Maybe someone who's more into puppets knows what I'm thinking. I don't know. I don't know what I'm asking you for. Just agree with me. Just agree that it looks kind of odd. That's all I want. Then in 2002, we get the movie A Very Merry Pooh Year, which is a direct-to-video Christmas movie. And this is the Christmas movie that contains Winnie the Pooh and Christmas 2. In this movie, Pooh's friends all come to his house, and then they all reminisce about a Christmas that happened in the past. we get a flashback to Winnie the Pooh and Christmas too. Christopher Robin writes letters to Santa from all of the different critters. I guess I don't know how to refer to them. Pooh and his friends. Christopher Robin writes letters to Santa about what everyone wants for Christmas. And his tactic is to release the letters into the wind. I don't think that's how you're supposed to do it. But then Pooh realizes that he forgot to add his wish to the letter. Ugh, I wonder what his wish is. I wonder what he's gonna wish for. But because Christopher Robin just sort of let the letters loose into the wind, he is able to find the letter and edit it to say that he wants honey. But because of too much letter editing and some uncooperative wind, we are concerned that Santa is not going to get these letters. So in a move of desperation, Pooh decides that he's going to make his friends all of the presents that they wished for. Then he dresses up as Santa and delivers the presents to everybody, and the presents all break because he handmade all of these objects. But then Christopher Robin brings presents. He got them all the presents on the list. So that was our little flashback, and now we're back in the present day. And Pooh realizes that he has lost Piglet's present, and he's still looking for it by New Year's Eve. Which, on New Year's Eve, Christopher Robin explains the concept of a New Year's resolution. Meanwhile, Rabbit is getting annoyed by everybody. He's trying to do something with his garden. It doesn't matter, but everyone's annoying him. And so he angrily announces that he's gonna leave the 100-acre wood. And everybody wants him to stay, so they all make New Year's resolutions that they're all gonna change their personalities and change about themselves what Rabbit doesn't like. Rabbit, of course, gets annoyed by this too, because they're all now just annoying in different ways. Then somehow he gets stuck in a tree and they rescue him, but in rescuing him, they all revert back to their normal personalities. And Rabbit apologizes. He's like, I was maybe being too hard on you guys. You can all just act normal. And Pooh finally remembers where he put Piglet's present, and he gives Piglet a music box. Then in 2003, we get another theatrical release, Piglet's Big Movie. Piglet has a scrapbook of all of his happy memories with his friends, but we learn that he's sad, that he's small and timid and can't help his friends with all of their schemes. For example, there's some sort of scheme to steal some honey, and he doesn't end up helping with that, even though he does save his friends from some bees. But he feels bad, and so he goes off to try and find a way that he can be useful. But then everyone's like, where did Piglet go? We need to find Piglet. He left. So they use his scrapbook to try and find him. And the scrapbook gives us various flashbacks of Piglet helping them out and him not being fully appreciated for how useful he was being. So then everyone's upset that they haven't properly appreciated Piglet. They start arguing, and they end up dropping the scrapbook into the river. They're like, oh no, we've destroyed Piglet's special scrapbook. So to fix it, they all go back home and start drawing pictures of their happy memories with Piglet. And then they're newly motivated to try and find Piglet again. So they go off again, and while they're looking, they see some scattered scrapbook pages that came out of the scrapbook and washed out on shore. So then they start looking, and they find the scrapbook, the binding of the book, suspended on a log over a waterfall. And then Pooh is like, well, I'm gonna go out and try and get it. Which then, of course, he needs to be rescued. But luckily, Piglet shows up, and Piglet is able to help rescue Pooh. Everybody reunites, and Piglet is super touched by all of the new pages of the scrapbook that everybody made. I don't love the pacing of this movie, because we have 3 flashbacks to fill time, and we don't actually really spend time with Piglet in the present day, even though this is supposed to be Piglet's movie. We spend all our time remembering Piglet. I do feel the need to mention that there is a tie-in video game for this movie called Piglet's Big Game. There were versions of this game for the PlayStation 2, the GameCube, and the Game Boy Advance. And it's a game about facing your fears, and so Piglet enters his friends' dreams to help them. And this game went viral for being actually quite spooky and scary and weird. People compared it to the horror video game Resident Evil, and then I guess someone who worked on the game was like, yeah, that was on the mood board. In 2004, we get Springtime with Roo, which is a direct-to-video Easter movie. I love that they're running out of holidays, and they're like, what haven't we done? Easter! Which the existence of Easter in the 100-acre wood suggests some sort of stuffed animal crucifixion and resurrection, so that's weird. I guess not weirder than Thanksgiving, because if you have Christmas, then I guess you also have Easter. But Thanksgiving's just a real American wild card. This does have the storybook and narrator motifs, which you know I love. We start the story on Easter, but Rabbit has decided that he wants to replace Easter with Spring Cleaning Day, and he gives everyone stuff to do. But while everyone's cleaning, they find the Easter decorations in Rabbit's house, so they decide to decorate his house for him. But this makes Rabbit very upset, and he kicks everybody out. And everyone's like, what's going on with Rabbit? So Tigger has the narrator take them to the past. So they flip back to towards the beginning of the book to Rue's first Easter. Rabbit was hosting an Easter party, and he was apparently very excited to be the Easter bunny, but he was being so strict about the party that no one was having fun. So everyone snuck away and had their own Easter celebration without Rabbit. So he felt left out and sad, and now he doesn't want to celebrate Easter anymore. Tigger explains to everyone what's going on and why Rabbit is sad, and everyone feels bad for Rabbit. Then the narrator takes Rabbit to see Rue in the present day, who's being tucked into bed by Kanga, and explaining that he wants to cheer Rabbit up, and he doesn't want Rabbit to be sad. Then the narrator takes Rabbit to the future, and we see that his strictness and stubbornness has driven everyone away from the 100-acre wood. So then Rabbit learns his lesson, and he wakes up, and he hosts a wonderful Easter party for everybody. I find it so funny that they decided to do a Christmas story, but Easter. I guess they were like, we've done too many Christmas movies, we can't do another one. We'll just do that, but for Easter. Because as I was watching it and I was realizing what was happening, I was like, oh, that's not what I thought this movie was going to be. It's called Springtime for Rue, but really it's Rabbit's story. Maybe they thought it would be silly to call it Springtime for Rabbit. In 2005, we get Pooh's Heffalump movie, and this was another theatrical release. In the 100-acre wood, everybody hears some sort of trumpeting noise, and they explain to Rue that it is a heffalump, and the heffalumps live in Heffalump Hollow. And then we decide that we should capture a heffalump to prevent invasion, because I guess we're concerned that the heffalumps are gonna come and destroy things. But I don't see how capturing one heffalump would accomplish that. Is it like a heffalump hostage? And this is a bargaining chip to prevent all other heffalumps? Whatever. That's their plan. But they say that Rue is too young to help them. So instead, Rue just goes off on his own. So Rue goes in search of heffalumps and pretty quickly runs into a child heffalump named Lumpy. And apparently Lumpy has to come when his mom calls, which that's what the trumpeting sound is his mom calling for him. But Rue convinces Lumpy to go run around and explore the 100-acre wood for a bit first. So the two of them run around and make messes in people's houses and become very good friends. Everybody else comes back from their failed heffalump expedition and finds the messes that Rue and Lumpy have made in their houses. And they're like, uh-oh, it's a nefarious heffalump. So they instead set a trap for a heffalump. It's time for Lumpy to go back to his mom, but they can't find her, and they haven't heard her call in a while, so Lumpy is very sad. And Rue is like, wait, we can go to my mom for help. So they go to find Kanga, but when they get back to where everyone is, everyone thinks that Lumpy is some sort of nefarious heffalump who's captured Rue. So they capture Lumpy. Rue frees Lumpy and then confronts his friends hey, he's actually a really chill heffalump. I think maybe we've been judging the heffalumps too harshly, this is my friend. And then somehow Rue gets knocked under a pile of logs. It happens very quickly. They're like, there needs to be a high-stakes moment at the end of this movie. They hadn't set up how that was going to happen. And they're like, oh no, he falls under some logs, I guess. Whatever. What logs? Don't worry about it. So then Lumpy calls for his mom, and his mom, who's a big, strong heffalump, is able to move all the logs out of the way and get Rue safe. So now everybody's friends. This movie got a direct-to-video sequel in 2005 called Pooh's Heffalump Halloween Movie. This is Lumpy's first Halloween, and him and Rue are very excited to go trick-or-treating. Then Tigger tells them about the gabloon, a monster who turns you into a jaggedy lantern, like a jack-o'-lantern. But if you catch the gabloon, you get a wish. Meanwhile, Pooh eats all of the Halloween candy and I guess this was like all of the Halloween candy in the entire 100-acre wood. Rabbit collected all of it and split it into equal bags for everyone to take back to their houses to give out during Halloween, and Pooh ate all of it. So now there's no candy. And Lumpy and Roo are like, well, let's just find a gabloon and then we can wish for more candy. Then Roo tells Lumpy the story of Boo to You, Winnie the Pooh. So that kills some time. Then they set a trap for the gabloon and they get separated. Lumpy gets stuck in the trap, and then Roo finds a jack-o'-lantern that looks like Lumpy, so then he's like, oh my god, Lumpy's been turned into a jaggedy-lantern. So he goes to his friends for help, and they check the trap, and Lumpy is still in there, but they think that it's a gabloon, and that the gabloon turned Lumpy into the jaggedy-lantern. And Roo is all sad, and he's like, Mr. Gabloon, can I have my friend Lumpy back? And it doesn't work. He's all sad. But then Lumpy is able to break out of the trap. He wasn't able to do it before, but he is now because of like his friend's sadness, maybe. I don't know. And then everybody reunites, and we learn that Kanga made jack-o'-lanterns of each of their faces, and that's where the jack-o'-lantern from earlier came from. And then we're finally able to go trick-or-treating. In 2007, there was a video game called Winnie the Pooh's Home Run Derby. It was a Flash computer game that was originally Japanese but was translated. And this game went viral for being extremely unnecessarily difficult. And I just figured if I was mentioning the other game that went viral, I should probably mention this game. Then in 2007, we get a new animated series called My Friends Tigger and Pooh. This ran on Playhouse Disney from 2007 to 2010. It is 3D animated. Each episode is 20 minutes, split into 2 different segments. And they did 63 episodes in total. This series stars a little girl named Darby, who is voiced by Chloe Grace Moretz. She has a dog named Buster, and she is friends with Tigger and Pooh. And the 3 of them are sleuths, and they solve minor problems and mysteries around the 100-acre wood. They all wear these like blue sleuth outfits. They have a tree hideout, and whenever there's a problem, the finder flag goes up, which gives them a clue about what the problem is. Like Blue's Clues meets the bat signal. Lumpy the Heffalump is a recurring character in this series. I weirdly don't like Lumpy the Heffalump that much. Like, he's fine, but I feel like he's trying too hard to be cute, you know? Like, oh, he's this purple baby elephant with little patchwork things on him, and he has this little British child voice. Isn't that cute? It's like, no. It's kind of a hat on a hat at this point. Give me more Eeyore. I remember My Friends Tigger and Pooh. I think I was a little bit too old for it. I kind of remember the show, and then I also really remember one of the games on the Playhouse Disney website called Playdate with Darby, and you could decorate her room and play dress up, and there were little mini games. But I also weirdly remember it having trouble running on my computer sometimes. Maybe the graphics requirements were higher than the average Flash game. I don't know. I just remember trying to play it and it not loading. There were also My Friends Tigger and Pooh direct-to-video specials, which also aired on Playhouse Disney. These were the Super Sleuth Christmas movie in 2007, Tigger and Pooh and a Musical 2 in 2009, and Super Duper Sleuths in 2010. In 2011, we get the theatrically released movie titled Winnie the Pooh. This one takes place inside of a storybook and has a narrator, and the characters interact with the type and the illustrations. This is also apparently the last feature film that Disney did that was traditionally animated, which seems crazy, but I guess that makes sense. In this movie, Eeyore has lost his tail, and everyone is competing, trying to make a replacement. Then Christopher Robin has to go to school, so he leaves a note that he will be back soon, but they think that he has been captured by the Baxen, a monster which they have just invented. Their plan is to trap the Baxen in a pit, but Tigger decides that his plan is to fight the Baxen. Eeyore was left behind by everyone, so Eeyore and Tigger work together to practice fighting. Tigger dresses up as the Baxen, or at least his interpretation of the Baxen, and Eeyore makes himself a tail out of an anchor, which seems very uncomfortable. Meanwhile, Pooh is fantasizing about honey, and so he accidentally falls into the trap that they made for the Baxen. They made like a pit and then covered it in a fake picnic, and Rabbit goes to Pooh like, I told you it wasn't actually full of honey. And Pooh's like, I forgot. Then the plan to get Pooh out of the pit is we're going to use Eeyore's anchor tail, like throw it down to him and then Pooh's going to climb out. This does not work, and instead everybody falls in the pit except for Piglet, so we send Piglet to go get Tigger for help, because Tigger is still off gallivanting trying to fight the Baxen. But unfortunately, Tigger is still dressed as the Baxen, and so that, of course, scares Piglet. So then they both fall in the pit. Everybody's in this pit. But luckily, as they were falling in the pit, they took a bunch of the letters from the storybook down with them. And so Pooh arranges the letters into like a ladder, and they're all able to climb out of the pit. I love that they're able to like interact with the book like that. Finally, we figure out that Owl was using Eeyore's tail as like a bell pull. Like you pull on it and it rings the bell. So Pooh brings Eeyore his tail back and wins the tail competition and gets a big pot of honey. Then there is a post-credit scene where we meet the real Baxen, who then falls into the pit. This is a very cute movie. It is also quite a short movie, but I almost prefer that. Like, don't put a bunch of flashback filler in there. Just like have one story and tell it well, and if it's short, that's fine, because kids don't have that great of an attention span anyway. Also, they recorded a new version of the theme song for this movie, and I was listening to it and I was like, is that Zooey Deschanel? It can't be. It was. I was like, good on me for recognizing that. Then, recently, we had a pilot from a canceled Winnie the Pooh series resurface. This would have been from like 2014, which is why I'm putting it at this point in the timeline. This was made by the studio Cartoon Saloon. There's just a small clip of it, but it looks very cute. I like the animation style. It has a narrator, which I like. It definitely feels modern and higher energy, but not in like a bad way. We have like no context for this clip, but it also doesn't matter because it's from over 10 years ago and isn't happening, so. Then in 2017, there was a movie called Goodbye, Christopher Robin. This is a theatrically released live-action movie that is a biopic of the real-life Christopher Robin. Domhnall Gleeson is playing A.A. Milne, Margot Robbie is playing his wife, and it shows some of the sort of complicated family relationship that the Milne family had and their relationship with Winnie the Pooh. And then coincidentally, in 2018, we get the movie Christopher Robin, which is a live-action, theatrically released movie that's like a fun family film. I believe I saw this in theaters when it happened. It stars Ewan McGregor as a grown-up Christopher Robin. He's now serious and works a lot, but Winnie the Pooh and his friends come out from the 100-acre wood to try and teach him the magic of childhood or whatever. This feels like a direct response to Paddington Bear, right? Paddington Bear was 2014, a family with a serious dad who acquires a bear who's very sweet and silly, and they grow closer together as a family. I think someone at Disney saw that movie, and they were like, hey, we can do that. And then they did, and I think it did okay. In 2021, we got an off-Broadway musical called Winnie the Pooh, the New Musical Adaptation. This uses puppetry to show Winnie the Pooh and all of his friends, and it has had multiple runs around the world. Then, in 2022, Winnie the Pooh entered the public domain in the United States. The US copyright has expired, not the UK copyright, because they have slightly different laws on that. But I guess if you're making things in the US, then you just need the US copyright to be good. So we have started seeing things being made in the US, not by Disney. For example, 2023, Blood and Honey, which is a Winnie the Pooh slasher film. Apparently they've already made a sequel and have another sequel in the works. I don't care about this. Seems kind of cash grabby and boring. Also in 2023, from Disney, we get Playdate with Winnie the Pooh, which is a series of shorts. This has a very bright, new CGI art style. I don't hate it. I don't love it. The characters do have a little fuzzy texture, which I think is cute, to make them look like stuffed animals. I don't find it as charming as the normal art style, but it's fine. What I really don't like is the voices. These characters have been aged down to be children, and so the voices are American children, not British for some reason, and all of the kids kind of sound the same. which I feel like the voices are such a distinctive part of Winnie the Pooh and like gives each character so much personality and makes them really different from each other, and that's not the vibe of this. I feel like you could do a higher energy Winnie the Pooh adaptation that still feels more true to the characters. Instead, this just feels kind of uncanny. Disney's like, this is Winnie the Pooh. No, this is a third grader named Grayson. Like, this is nothing. They do have more girl characters, so they made Rabbit a girl, and there is a beaver character named Bee. So that's something, I guess. Then there's a spin-off series of shorts to that series of shorts called Me and Winnie the Pooh, where the characters are speaking directly to the audience, and so it feels even younger. And then finally, not yet released, but planned to be released in 2025, the 100 Acre Woods Winnie the Pooh. This is not a Disney production. It is by Cartoon Studios. They apparently have planned 5 holiday specials and over 200 6-minute shorts. The characters are made to look like they're made of yarn, which is a cute idea, but I'm suspicious of this quote about how they are blending AI and hand-drawn characters and backgrounds. To our knowledge, this will be the first time using characters and methods developed with AI. We literally would not have been able to do this project even a year ago before the advent of today's AI and the tools that now can make this kind of look available, said multi-Emmy winning director Michael Maliani. Just in case you needed me to say it, this is an anti-generative AI YouTube channel. Between the environmental and energy concerns, the stealing from artists, and the general devaluing of human creativity and labor, don't like it, not into it. I do wonder, though, the extent to which AI is being used in this production. It sounds like they're just using some sort of software algorithm to help them achieve the textures they want for the, like, yarn stuff. Isn't that kind of what that sounded like? And they're just using the term AI because it's like a buzzword, as opposed to, like, you put a prompt into a thing and then it spits out Winnie the Pooh. I still don't like it because that means that they are using AI as a buzzword to try and market their Winnie the Pooh product. And I'm also suspicious because I went on the Instagram of this studio and there's a ton of Bitcoin stuff and like AI generated images. Boo. No. They released a teaser for this Winnie the Pooh project back in January, and it's just animation of the characters all like moving around and jumping and dancing set to like their theme song, but we never hear them talk, and I feel like the voices are really gonna make or break this. So I am suspicious. Feels like they're gonna be bad. We'll see what this ends up being. And so that's the current status of our friend Pooh. I hope Disney has more things in the works for him. Come on, Disney. Your competitors are doing horror movies and AI shorts. Look what they've done to my boy. That's all I've got for you today. If you liked this video, you can subscribe. I'm Sarah Seraph on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Tumblr. I've been posting a lot of short form content that's more casual, so you can check that out. I also have a P.O. box, so if you want, you can send me things in the mail. And I don't know how to end a YouTube video. So, bye!